Welcome learner, another session on psychology for living. In this session, we are going to talk about a concept of emotion. The term concept of emotion comprises with the meaning of emotions and component of emotional process. Then we will discuss about the type of emotions, and at the end of this session, we will cover about emotions and their different functions. So, when we say emotions, the nearest word that comes in our mind which is feeling. Though in psychology emotion has been extensively discussed, but emotion is not all the feeling that we say. We can say in other words in psychology that emotion which comprises three different things. So, emotion is not only the feeling, though feeling is one of the component of emotion, we can say in some other words. So, emotion means the feeling part of our mental life. It is what we experience when something important happened to us. Like for example, when we are happy, when we are sad, when we are angry, when we are afraid, when we are surprised. So, these kind of situations, when you imagine, you will have a kind of emotion within you. So, emotion is not just a feeling, it also involves a first which is called thinking part, which is our mind, how we understand and interpret the situation. And the second is the body, which is physiological changes that take place like fast breathing, sweating, trembling, all these things also simultaneously happens. And the third one is our expression part. So, the expressions like we can say smiling, crying, shouting, hugging, all these things comes under the expression part of our emotions. So, emotion is not just a feeling, it is a combination of thinking, physiological changes, or we can say expression or action. So, one explain the emotion. Once we say emotion, it means that there is a feeling which is subjective part of emotion, but also it comprises certain physiological changes as well as how we act when we experience certain kind of emotion, like we smile sometimes, sometimes we cry, sometimes we shout. So, all these things are also involved in the emotion. So, we can say in a group like emotion is a combination of feeling, body reactions and expression. So, psychologists studies emotion to understand how they influence our thought, decisions and relationship, because thoughts, decisions and relationship is something that are the part of our life. Either we think, then we react, then we behave. So, everything that is, it seems to be like very independent, but emotion is something which influence all these three things. So, we are going to discuss emotion in detail. Like let's say, if we say what is the meaning of emotion, then we can say the word emotion comes from the Latin word immover. Immover means to move out. Move out means to act. Move out means, like for example, like when we experience fear, we make us run away. So, when we are anger, make us to fight or protest. When we are happy, then make us a smile or share with others. So, these actions basically takes place because of emotions. So, the Latin word immover means move us, or we can say move out, or we can say immover means the move out. The word meaning itself, it's a move out means move us to act something. So, in simple word, we can say emotion is a strong feeling that arises automatically when we react to something important in our life. So, whenever we interact with the environment, we try to adjust with the environment, and in order to adjust, we encounter different kind of stimuli at the same time, and we label them, and accordingly we react them. So, emotion are seen as a mental state that involve both. One is the feeling part as well as thoughts. How do we perceive, how do we interpret the stimulus? Accordingly we interpret the stimulus and we experience emotions. So, it helps us to adapt to our environment. The emotion is something that help us to adapt our environment. For example, fear wants us to, there is some danger. Love help us to contact, and joy motivate us to continue what is good for us. So, all these things you have seen, like for example, fear, when we say fear, fear means it is something through which we want that there is a danger and we have to escape from them. And when we have a love kind of emotions, we definitely try to connect with, and when we experience joy, we motivate to continue what is good for us accordingly. So, for example, if we say let us say one example, a dog is suddenly barking to you. So, what would be the consequences? Your heart basically start beating fast. It is a body reaction. When you feel fear, it is a kind of emotions, and you may run away, or that is comes under the behavioral part. So, all these together make up the emotion of fear. So, when we say emotion of fear, it is not only the feeling part, but also the bodily reactions that take place and how do we act according to the situation. Now, the interpretation part can be differently for the different persons, like someone when the dog is suddenly barking, that can be interpreted by the individual differently. Someone who is afraid from the dog may experience fear, someone is not afraid from the dog, they would not feel fear and they would experience different kind of emotions. So, how you interpret the stimuli will also determine which kind of emotion you will experience. So, when we say the component of emotional process, what are the things comes together? When we experience an emotion, it is usually happen in a sequence or process that involves several parts. So, it is not a single part, but it involves very several parts. So, psychologists generally describe four main component of an emotional process that we say. So, when we experience emotion, there is a process, and in the process there are four main components that we need to discuss. As we discussed in the just before about the different examples, like a stimulus, where the stimulus or situation that triggered us. So, this is what the starts of emotion. The very first component of the emotional process is stimulus, or we can say stimulus can be one object, one situation, one environment can be the stimulus. So, this is what the starts the emotions. So, something that happens around us or within us, it can be the stimulus. So, stimulus cannot always be external, it can be internal as well. For example, external, you see a snake and hearing a good news or meeting with a friend, all these can be the external stimuli. But as far as internal stimulus is concerned, it can be thinking about a sad memory and worrying about your future. All these are the internal stimuli which also triggered your emotions. So, the stimulus, the component of emotional process, the first component is stimulus or situation that triggered your emotions, and it can be either external or internal as well. So, in external we can have any external stimuli, and in internal, if you are thinking about some sad memory, maybe happiest memory, maybe we are worried about the future life, that can be the internal stimuli that triggered emotion. So, you see a dog running towards you, that can be the stimulus. Now, you have to react, how you are going to react, that is also one kind of stimulus. So, stimulus is one dog is running to you and now you have to react. So, interpretation of the stimulus will determine which kind of emotion you experience. The very first component was the stimulus, which is triggering part. Then the second component is called cognitive appraisal. It means the interpretation or the thoughts that takes place when you encounter with the emotions. So, once you encounter with the stimuli or triggering situation, then it comes, the second component comes in this picture, and we go for the interpretation part. So, this means how you understand or evaluate the situation will determine which kind of emotion you are going to experience. So, your thought decide which emotions you will feel. Like for example, if you think the dog will bite me, then definitely you will feel fear. If you think like, oh, it is my pet dog, then you will feel joy. So, in both the condition, the stimulus was same, the triggering stimulus was same, but how you are interpreting, accordingly you process different kind of emotions. As I told you, like if you have you are comfortable with your dog, those just approaching to you, and you think like, oh, it's my pet dog, then definitely you will feel joy. But when you think like the dog will bite me, then you will experience fear. So, it is why the situation is same, but because of the interpretation, which is the cognitive appraisal part, or we can say the component of the emotional process, that is the second component, which is cognitive appraisal or interpretation, or thoughts, we can say, determine which kind of emotions you are going to experience. So, the same event can causes different emotion depending upon how you interpret it. So, your interpretation part will determine how you are going to experience emotion. The very third part that take place, or third component we can say, which is called physiological changes. As I told you in the very beginning, the emotion is nothing but a feeling part, but it has a combination. It is a combination of feeling, then the physiological changes, and the behavioral, which is called action part. So, in component, first we have discussed about the triggering component, which is called stimulus. Then we have seen definitely the physiological changes is also one of them that we have to understand, and definitely the cognitive appraisal, which is also the second part that of component that we have discussed. So, the third component is nothing but the physiological changes, that is bodily reactions. Once the emotion is triggered, the body react automatically. It is not voluntary, you can say, it is automatically moreover. So, it includes, like if we say the bodily changes take place, means what kind of changes take place. First, we can say the faster heartbeat, then the sweating, the change in breathing, then muscle tension. All these are the common changes, bodily changes that take place. Apart from it, there are certain things also take place, but the thing is that we need to understand, after appraisal there is a bodily reaction also take place. Some theorists believe that it goes simultaneously, some say it happens step by step. But we need to understand here that in emotion, the physiological changes also should be there, otherwise it would not be considered as an emotion. So, once the emotion is triggered, the bodily react automatically, and the bodily reactions could be heartbeat, faster heartbeat, sweating, changing in breathing, or muscle tension, etc. These changes are controlled by the autonomic nervous system pertaining to the body for action, which is called fight and flight or rest. So, autonomic nervous system is sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system. We are very familiar with this thing. So, in one condition we would be in fight and flight mode, or in the second condition we will be in rest or digest mode. So, for example, when we are afraid with something, your heartbeat fast and you maybe experience some sweating because of the certain fear that you experience. And the fourth component, which is also is a part of emotional process, which is called behavioral expression. Ultimately, the behavioral expression will take place at the end of the emotions. What stimulus is triggered, then what kind of appraisal, or we can say how you interpret the stimuli, then which kind of physiological changes take place, and the last component is the behavioral expression. So, as I mentioned that different theories has explained the emotions differently, in which some suggest that one happens after the second, but some suggest all things happen together, or we can say the simultaneously things happens as far as the physiological changes is concerned and the interpretation of the stimuli is concerned. So, in behavioral expression, which is called action and response component. So, this is the fourth component, and we can say fourth component of emotional process. So, this is how we show our expressions, how we express our emotion outwardly. Maybe we can experience certain emotion within us, but it would also reflect in our face, or sometimes we express very intelligently, or sometimes we express it very effectively. So, this is a kind of expression that we do, and explain means we express certain emotion outwardly through our face, through our voice, through our actions. So, there are three things through which we express emotions. our voice tone would be completely different for the different emotions, as well as our face. Face is one of the one of the element through which we express our emotions and definitely our actions. For example, when we are smiling, laughing, then it means we are experiencing happiness kind of emotions. When we are crying, definitely we would be in sadness emotions, and when we are following or shouting, definitely we are experiencing a kind of emotion which is called anger. So, behavioral expression basically help us or understand what we feel, and these expression will also help others to perceive what we are experiencing. So, expression part is also one of the component of the emotional process. So, what we discussed so far in terms of emotional component of emotional process, in which we have discussed 4 components. One is triggering part, which is called a stimulus. The second one is the interpretation part, which is maybe you can say how you are thinking, how you are interpreting the stimuli. The third is the physiological changes that take place, bodily reaction that take place, that also one of the component of emotional process. And the fourth one is nothing but a behavioral expression, or we can say action or response. So, these 4 components that we generally understand about the emotion, and when you can recall about the meaning of emotions or concept of emotion, you will understand that the emotion comprises feeling part, then cognitive part, thought part, and the action part. So, physiological changes is also there, then subjective feeling part is also there, and the expression is also there. So, accordingly you can understand what component would be there in emotions. Then let us go forward in this discussion, and we will discuss about the types of emotion. Though there are good number of types of emotions, and it has been discussed and explained by different researcher in the different meanings and with the different findings, though the psychologists have grouped this emotion in a different way, but the most common and the simple division is between the basic and we can say the complex emotions. The basic emotions are the primary emotions, and complex emotions are the secondary emotions. So, though we have a good number of emotions which has been extensively studied by the different psychologists, but it has been clubbed in a certain way through which you can understand what are these grouping are. One is the basic or the complex, you can say the primary or secondary emotions. So, let us talk about the basic emotions, which is called primary emotions. So, there are natural or universal emotion that all human beings experience regardless of their culture, their background, that there are certain common or universal emotions that we all experience in the same way, or we shared with across the globe, and it is despite it is regardless of the culture and background. So, they appear early in the life and are easily recognized through the facial expression. According to the psychologist Paul Ekman, there are 6 basic emotions that are common and that is are universal in nature as well. What are these 6 basic emotions? One is happiness, the second one is sadness, the third one is anger, fear, surprise, and disgust. Let me talk about one by one in the detail, so that you can understand what are the basic 6 emotions that has been discussed by Ekman. So, first is the happiness. Definitely it is a kind of getting good marks, meeting up with a friend, and your expression would be like a smiling, laughing. It is a kind of expression through which you can experience happiness. The another kind of expression that we have, like crying or low in energy, which comes under the kind of emotion which is called sadness. So, maybe losing something or someone can create a kind of emotions within you which is called sadness, and in which you can display expressions like crying or low energy kind of things. Another emotions which is called primary emotions, one is called anger. So, anger means being insulted or maybe treated unfairly can give you a kind of trigger of the anger. In anger, our expression would be like shouting, would be the very common expression when we think about anger. Then another emotion is fear. In the fear, we seeing dangers or hearing loud noise, then we can have a fear kind of emotions, and definitely the expression would be trembling or maybe running away from the situations would be a kind of expression that we reflect and which indicates that the person is going through the fear. Another primary emotion which is surprise, and definitely in surprise we raise our expression would be raised eyebrows and wide eyes could be the surprise kind of things through which we see. And when we experience surprise emotions, definitely when the unexpected event happened, and unexpected things will give us will come up with the surprise event, and this surprise event we can have, and we can have an expression with the wide eyes. When we show wide eyes, which indicates that you are surprised. The last emotion, which is the sixth emotion called primary emotion, which is called disgust. So, disgust is one of the emotions in which we tuning away or wrinkle our wrinkle nose, which is also one of the expressions through which we express disgust. So, seeing something unpleasant could be the reason through which we experience disgust. So, all these six emotions are known as the primary emotions: happiness, sadness, anger, fear, surprise and disgust. So, there are certain complex emotions as well. So, that we discussed the previously, which was the primary emotions. The secondary emotions are the emotions which are more complex in nature. These are learned emotions that we develop as we grow and interact with others. They are a combination of basic emotions and involve thinking, culture and experiences. So, it can be differ culture to culture. It is moreover influenced by the background and culture. Therefore, we say it is a complex emotion. So, complex emotion or secondary emotion is a combination of basic emotion that we discussed and involving with the thinking, culture and our experiences. Like for example, pride. In the pride, you can see there are two combinations, one is joy and the second one is the self evaluation. Like in guilt, we have a combination of sadness and responsibilities. Like when we are hurting someone unintentionally, that is a kind of guilt that we experience, in which the responsibility is also there, but with the basic emotions like sadness. Like in same we can have a fear including social awareness. Being embarrassed in a public can be experienced, one can be experienced same kind of emotions, and this same kind of emotion is a combination of fear and social awareness. Then we have another complex emotions which can be stated, that love. Love is something which is a combination of joy and trust, caring of family or partner, that would expression that would create a kind of love, but it is not a very basic emotions, but it is a combination of joy as well as trust. Then the jealousy. Jealousy is a combination of three emotions: anger, fear, sadness. All these three comes together and create one complex of emotion which is called jealousy. So, feeling threatened in a relationship can be one of the example through which we can understand the jealousy. So, jealousy is again one of the complex emotion in which we can have anger, fear and sadness all together. So, when we say emotions, there are three interchangeably words comes in the picture, as I discussed very in the beginning, like feeling, as well as sometimes we say mood. Our mood is not that good. So, we need to understand here what is the difference between emotion, mood and feeling. So, these three words are moreover sound similar, but in psychology they have a different meaning that we need to understand. One is emotion that we have discussed extensively, like emotion is a strong and short term reaction, that a specific event or situation that create triggered and we experience emotions. It includes like feeling part, then the bodily changes part, then expression part. The three things comes in the emotions. One is feeling part, then the bodily changes part, then the expression part. And duration of emotion is very short, we can say a few seconds or few minutes. Basically, when we say about durations, you can feel fear when you are when you see a snake, and when you feel anger when you are someone insult you. So, all these things are the type of feelings, or we can say it's a type of emotions which is not a feeling only, it's a combination of feeling, bodily changes and expression. Then the second part is the feeling. So apart from all these things, when we say feeling, feeling is a subjective experience or inner part of an action, how the emotions feel inside you, that is the feeling. The subjective experience is a feeling, it is not emotion, it is one of the part of emotion, you can say. It is what we sense mentally, not what we show outwardly. So what we sense mentally is the feeling part, not what we show outwardly. So we can understand the feeling is something which is sensed mentally. So duration can be brief, longer, depending upon the emotions. You feel happy, you sad, afraid, or maybe calm. Feeling is the inner awareness of your emotions. You can say inner awareness of emotion is a feeling, or subjective experience is a part of feeling. The another term which comes in this discussion, we can say mood. So mood is something that is a longer, or we can say longer lasting emotional state that is not linked with the specific cause. It affects how you feel and think for hours or even the day. So it's a longer run of emotional state which is called mood. So duration can be long, and for example, you wake up in a good mood and you feel cheerful without any reasons throughout the day. Maybe in the second example, you can say you may be in a bad mood, sad, feel irritable all the day. That can be your state of mind, or we can say long lasting emotional state. So in short, we can say mood is like a emotional climate that stay for a while emotion is like a sudden weather that change. So emotion is a weather, whereas the emotional climate is the mood. So with this we can understand what is emotion, what is feeling, what is mood. So in a simpler way that you can recall, like emotion is a reaction, whereas the feeling is the experience, whereas the mood is the background tone that you have. So with this we can understand what is the mood, feeling and emotions. Let us talk about the functions of emotions. So functions of emotions can be understand differently. They help us to understand ourselves, connect with the others, and definitely to survive with the environment. So psychologists group three functions into the three main types: adaptive, motivational and social. So when we talk about the functions of emotion, so three main types, you can say adaptive, motivational and social. So let us talk briefly about all these three. Adaptive functions of emotions is the survival functions. So emotions that help us to adjust and survive with our environment, adjust with the environment, and that is required for the survival. They prepare our body and to respond quickly to important situation which is called adaptive functions of emotions, like fear. When we experience fear, try to help us or avoid to danger. Then when we have anger, we can defend ourselves. Then when we have happiness, we encourage our behavior. So in short, we can say that emotions help us to protect ourselves and adapt with the situation. So adaptations as well as protections, that is also required for the survival. So one of the basic functions of emotion is the survival function, or in which we survive, we adapt the environment. Then second functions of emotion is the motivational function. Emotion gives us energy and gives us directions of the action. When we try to maintain our behavior for the long period of time, it is only because of the motivational part of emotion. So the motivations that comes with the definitely from the emotions, they acts like motivator, emotion acts like motivator, and that push us to do something. Like love motivate us to care for other, curiosity basically move us to basically drive us to learn new things, curiosity, and joy basically encourage us to repeat the behavior that makes us feel good. So every emotions have a motivational factor that motivates us to maintain our behavior, to activate our behavior. Then we have a social functions. Definitely the emotion help us to communicate and build relationship with others. Being a social being, without having emotion, you can imagine how you are going to interact with the others. So the social functions gives us opportunity to communicate and basically help these emotions. Emotion help us to communicate and build relationship with others. Though the facial expression, through the tone, the voice and the gesture that we show and how we feel, that understand how others are feeling at the same time. So our expressions will, our tone, our voice will actually gives us in a kind of indicators through for the others that through which we are communicating. So a smile face can be give us an expression of friendliness, like crying maybe shows us need for comfort, then the anger can be a signal of something is wrong. So all these things, all these emotions basically also give us opportunity to communicate and build relationship with others. The cognitive function is also there, where we think and take decision making. So emotion also influence our how we think, remember or make decisions. Basically our thinking pattern, remembering pattern or decision pattern can also be influenced by the emotion, or we can say emotion has also one of the functions. Like for example, positive mood basically improve our creativity, problem solving. Fear or anxiety makes us more cautious or more alert in the sense at the same time. So it also influences our cognitive functions. It has also functions in health and well-being, where the balance emotions keep us mind, body healthy, and we can balance between our adjustment with the environment, and we can become more healthy. So with this we can say the functions of emotions can be understand with the adaptive, motivational, social part, and we can say at the end, like without having emotion we can't imagine our life very fruitful. So with this I would like to end this session, and what we have discussed so far, we have seen like what is the concept of emotion, meaning of emotion, component of emotion. We also discussed what are the how we can differentiate between mood, feeling and emotions. We also discuss about the functions of emotion. Hope you have understand all this concept in a very extensive manner. We request you to go with the content once again and understand the concept very clearly. Thank you so much for your patience.